Hello and welcome everybody to a special edition of the Buy Round podcast. Today, myself and Charlie are going to be discussing each and every team in the NRL. So all 17 teams on a little bit of a season preview.
That's right, Jimmy, in depth. And we've just spent about half an hour you organising your papers before we came in, because in case you don't know, Jimmy doesn't like his paper stapled. If you're listening, you'll see mine stapled. Jimmy's is not. We spent about half an hour of you organising the teams in the way you wanted. It was literally like watching an absolute fool just fumbling around. It was embarrassing. And you wouldn't talk to anyone as well.
You did print them off in a random order. So now you're going to be flicking through the stapling
That's
order.
That's fine, though. That's fine. Stapled together, it's easy.
And also you said those that are listening. I think you mean those that are watching.
Yeah,
true. If you're listening, you can't see the fact that yours is stapled. So
you are right.
The devil's in the detail.
Correct. And it was meant to be the 03 Kangaroos Tour show today, but that's been pushed back to next week. So
it has, because you mentioned it on Midweek Matters.
Yes,
that's the only reason we've not been able to record.
It's going to be really good as well. Do you know what? I might try and jinx it with another jinx. It's going to be Willie Mason and Craig Wing doing the 2003 Kangaroos Tour. So we just got cancelled last minute this week, but we're going to try and record that next week before Vegas.
So that's definitely not happening.
Well, let's start. What we're going to do is we're going to work our way up the ladder.
Yes.
From the bottom to the top. And of course, the Tigers, they've won back-to-back wooden spoons, finishing 17th this year. Great news, Tigers fans. You can't go any worse this year. You could last year. You went from 16th to 17th. 17th is the floor. So best of luck. But some great signings they've got, Jimmy. Justin Olam, Aiden Caesar, Jaden Sullivan comes on board, and the Fainu brothers as well. Latu, who might be in reserve grade most of the year, but Samuel Fainu will likely be in their 17.
Yeah, it's for me, the biggest thing about the Tigers this year is their coaching structure. So obviously Benji takes the reins. A huge job on his hands, but like you said, they can't go any worse. But just how much time is Benji going to be afforded? Obviously, it was a 5-year plan or a 2-year plan to be in the assistant coach's role. That's been fast-tracked after 1 year. All eyes have got to be on Benji Marshall, how he can galvanise this group, how instead of them looking in the rear-view mirror, how can they look forward? How can they move forward? How much of the scars of the last 2 seasons, how have they affected this group? Can Benji help them? Like, look, in terms of the preseason, everything's great. Everyone's feeling, confident and sure of themselves. And there has been, a number of signings. But when the game's on the line, the Tigers are a team that are still not used to finding their way to victory. They're not used to knowing how to win. I just wonder how much work Benji's put into that, and how much actually can you do, because it's very difficult to replicate those game day scenarios when you're looking around and you just have that feeling of like, oh no, we've been here before, and other teams get to sense it as well. So look, I think we will see an improvement in the Tigers. Another thing that it's one of those, as a player you want to focus on playing, but I think we'll see less distraction off the field as well. We will have Justin Pascoe on this week.
Yep, Sunday.
And that's a great interview, but it's hard. You can't deny that the off-field stuff perhaps was a distraction for the players, or even an excuse or a reason. It's easy to fall back into that and say, oh, well, the front desk and the head office isn't aligned, and there's constantly in the press. So they don't have that excuse anymore. But I just wonder how much the scars of the previous years, and how Benji's focus needs to be on them being in the present. I think we'll see less blowout scores against the Tigers. I think we'll see a more competitive Tigers, but I can't see them getting outside the bottom 4 or the bottom 5 as it is now.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, it is Benji Marshall's first full year as head coach. He's got a 4-year deal, so you imagine that the pressure won't be there as much. You talk about those off-field distractions. If they are going poorly, given it's Benji's first year and the length of deal he's got, surely there'll be a little bit less media pressure on the club.
Yeah, you can only assume so, but the Tigers have been an easy kick, and people will want to see improvement. You would like to think that there wouldn't be as much pressure in his first year as coach, but pressure comes with the job, doesn't it, Charlie?
So what's it going to take then, Jimmy, for the Tigers to turn things around this year, do you think? What can they do to be successful?
Yeah, well, look, I think last year they were starting to learn how to play off Api Carousel. He's still their main, he's their star. He's their best player. So how they learn to play off him is going to be vital. That creativity he brings around the 9. And all eyes will be on Benji. How can Benji handle the pressure? How can he deal with the loss? How can he inspire this team? The creativity that he brings. So I think his influence on people like Jerome Bula and Jaden Sullivan is going to be vital if the Tigers are going to be successful this year. But unfortunately, I still see them being down that bottom end of the ladder.
All right, Jimmy, well, let's move on to the Bulldogs then. Because
No, it's the Dragons.
Sorry, the Dragons, yep. This is going to be annoying with these papers.
Well, fucking staple. We're recording this, Tone. Put this in the little outtakes. Someone's got organised, someone's not.
Let's move on to the Dragons then, Jimmy. They finished 16th last year, your former club, and they've got some players coming through. Corey Allen, Raymond Faitala-Mariner, Tom Eisenuth, Hame Sele, Christian Tuipulotu. But the big news, it's sort of just broken. Luciano Leilua is going to be returning to the Dragons this year.
Yeah, it seems that way, and he's a handy pickup for the Dragons. I think the Cowboys don't lose too much because they've got plenty of strike on an edge and in the middle of the park. But yeah, great pickup for the Dragons. He's obviously a very skillful player, a lot of creativity, which can sort of take a little bit of the pressure off the spine as well when he's out being his creative self over on an edge. I think for me, the question mark around the Dragons is who plays fullback and the impact that they can have. You know, Ben Hunt is, he's come out and said he wants to stay for the next couple of years, which I think is fantastic, but I don't know if he can actually do any more. He can't play any much better than he did last year. He can't be more influential than he did last year. He can't have many more touches and receives than he did last year. So that means that other people and other players are going to have to start to chip in with some involvement. And the man for me to do that, if the Dragons are to be successful, is Tyrell Sloan. He's had a couple of years now in and around first grade. We've seen in patches what his capabilities are. We've seen his areas of concern. But I think if the Dragons are to be successful, it's going to be around Tyrell Sloan. Also, then the influence of Shane Flanagan on people like your Jack Birds of the world. We saw how he played under Flanagan in the Sharks. He's not had a season like that since. So can Shane Flanagan tap into his experience, players like your Jack Bird, your Moses Sully for a more consistent performance, even players like Jack DeBell and see him back to his best, Francis Molo. Can he get those experienced players that perhaps maybe have been under par probably by their own admission to just be a little bit above what they're usually bringing? And Shane Flanagan again is another coach not too dissimilar to Benji Marshall. You think, well, he will be afforded time based off the players that they've brought in. There's no real superstar there that they've pinned their hopes on. There's no marquee signing coming in, so it's a big test. Another one of Shane Flanagan's coaching career. Can he galvanise this group? Can he strike a narrative that these players buy into?
Well, Blake Laurie is there, Jimmy. And he's obviously going to be fighting for an origin spot, I think, this year. He was obviously picked in the White Knights in our fantasy draft. And all the talk is that gave him a boost in preseason. He's been training the house down.
Yeah, well, he always trains really well. But again, a guy like Blake Laurie, he's not a demand on resources. And I don't know, he's always going to, his level of consistency, there's not much difference between his best and his worst.
For now, though, but this year could be a big improvement for him. But just back to Tyrell Sloan, do you think then he should get a lot more rope this year, given he is going to be really important for their future? If he's making a few mistakes in the early games, do you think they really need to give him the first half of the season to find his feet as a first grader?
Well, I think it comes down to the attitude of the team. If someone's in your team that can be creative and do things that others can't, you've also got to bear in mind that they're going to make mistakes and they're not always going to nail it. Reece Walsh, for example, is quite high on the error count for NRL total errors in terms of when you look at the stats and you think, oh, well, he makes a load of errors. Well, he creates so much, but what his team do is they back him and go, well, it's okay. We've got your back now, Reece. It's a team game. We know you do these type of things that nobody else can do, and you execute more than you don't. But when you make that error, when you've got that 3-on-2 and it doesn't come off, obviously you don't want the intercept. But if it leads to an error, we'll have your back. And I think that's part of it is with Sloaney, give him that license to go and be his creative self, put some structure around him and give him some freedom to go out the back and play as he sees fit and execute options, give him plenty of options out wide to do what he does best. But also knowing if it doesn't come off, it can't be that collective sigh of like, oh no, he's mucked up again. Because you can see almost his head drop. But if the lads around him already know, we've got your back. And he knows that. And it's been discussed and spoken about because the smart teams do. The smart teams discuss that and say, look, we don't want your head dropping. We want you to throw that pass. We want you to try things. We want you to put that kick in behind because we back you that it will come off. So don't go into your shell. But it comes from that collective group of having his back.
I'll ask you this of every team during this preview, but what do they need to do in the Dragons to be successful this year?
Shane Flanagan to have his best coaching year so far, and that's saying something.
Is that does that then say that it's going to be a tough year for the Dragons? Really, because even if he gets the amazing effort out of all this team, they're still going to be probably a bottom four side.
They likely are, but I think Shane Flanagan needs to tap into that people management, that man management skill that we saw at the Sharks. A good mix of youth and experience there. Get those experienced players playing at the top of their game and putting in 7, 8 out of 10 each and every week, and then the plan would to be to blood some young players and watch them shine. But it's hard as a former player there, and I'm friends with a number of these people, but it's difficult to see the Dragons making huge improvements on last year. But I think with Shane, we'll see them a lot more competitive. I think the positive sign of it is last year you look at a number of their losses, they're very close losses. Now you can view that and you can certainly see that if they compete, they're not that far away. It's just, can Shane squeeze out that how to get a victory in those difficult moments, similar to what we spoke about with the Tigers and in that familiarity, in that feeling of we're just used to losing. Can Shane change the attitude? That's what I'm talking about, him being the most important factor
at that club. Their favourites, the Wooden Spoon. Where do you think they're going to finish?
Look, I think they'll be in and around the bottom 4 or 5, unfortunately.
Well, your other team, Jimmy, the Bulldogs, they finished 15th. And fun fact, they haven't made the final since 2016 when you were captain of the club. So it has been a really, really dire era. But Cameron Serrato's come in now and they've completely revamped this roster. You look at some of the names coming in. You got Stephen Crichton, absolute superstar, Drew Hutchinson, Josh Curran, Fal Masili, Kurt Mann, Jamin Salmon, Blake Taff, Connor Tracy, Bronson Cherry, and Jake Turpin. And obviously the name there that stands out is Stephen Crichton. But Blake Taff has been named fullback for the first trial. And when he's had his chance at South Sydney, he's gone really well. And he could be a huge boost for the club. Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the signings, there's plenty there for everybody involved with the club to be excited about, like legitimately excited about. And I've watched Stephen Crichton go about his business. Like, he is jaw-dropping. Like, he is the man. Like, he leads by example. He's the ultimate professional. You can already see the influence that he's having in and around the training paddock and in and around the football club. And you look at the players that have come in, lots of experience there. Josh Curran, another one that was a big part of the Warriors' success. Really like him as a footballer. A couple of others there. Your Bronson Cherry back from suspension. We saw the potential that he had before he made that huge mistake. But if he can replicate the form and the potential that he was showing, Connor Tracy is a player that I really like as well. You mentioned Blake Taff, Kurt Mann, that has done such a good job in that lock forward role or coming off the bench and plugging a gap here and there. I think for the
for the Bulldogs, a lot gets made around that they look like they're missing a middle and some strong middles, but I think that's got to be there. Almost take that personally, that people are saying that, and attack it collectively as a group. It's going to be a different style. There's no one particular player. Like, the Warriors have got a good forward pack, but they go for Fanua Blake. Like, he's their man. Like the Panthers, they've got the two big boppers in Fisher Harris and Liotta. That are their leaders. The Bulldogs don't have that at the moment on paper. You might look and say, well, we need somebody to really come through and take those reins.
Max King's a decent front rower.
There's a couple of young lads there as well that could maybe take that mantle, but I think what they've got to do is attack it as a collective. They really do.
You spoke about Connor Tracy and Bronson Cherry. It looks like they're going to be battling out for a centre spot. And the mail around is that Connor Tracy's going to get first crack. So Bronson Cherry will have to bide his time in New South Wales Cup a little bit. But that's a great sign even for the Dogs that a guy like Bronson Cherry, who as good as he was, is going to have to work his way back up through reserve grade.
Yeah, I think that's only natural. Like 4 years out of the game is a long time, Charlie, and you can be looking good in training, but he's probably going to need a good stint of games under his belt before he's ready to go to the NRL. I think, I could be wrong, and if the coaching staff and everybody thinks he's ready, then good luck to him. It'd be interesting to see how he goes in the trials, but it's different. We can do all the training in the world and all the repetition, but it's all the emotional and mental energy as well that goes into playing week to week. And he's not had that for such a long time, and it does take some getting used to.
You spoke about the forwards being a challenge, but the spine there's a few question marks around that as well, particularly in the halves. Matt Burton's going to likely get first crack at 5'8". Drew Hutchinson has been named at 7 for the first trial with Toby Sexton on the bench. So maybe they get one half each and see how they go. But if that's probably a sign that Drew Hutchinson might get first crack in round 1.
I think you're reading too much into it, Charlie.
You think so?
It's just a trial.
It's interesting though, because you've got Blake Taff at fullback. You want to get those combinations going.
Yeah, you would, but
you reckon Sexton's got the spot?
I don't reckon that. I reckon I don't know who's got the spot. I think it's up for debate, and it's there for the taking.
Yeah,
is what I'm reading into it.
Fair enough, but there's probably some question marks there. First of all, Matt Burton, is he a half? Is he a centre? He killed it at centre when he was playing there. He was Dally M Centre of the Year. He's gone into the halves and he struggled a little bit.
Yeah,
the Dogs.
It's completely different context. So there's a lot of players that could play centre in championship teams, and Matt Burton was one of them, and he was outstanding. But I think you look at his ability to have an impact on the game. I think the excitement that he brings, I think he's better in the halves, and he doesn't have to wait for the ball. That's just my personal opinion, and obviously I'm looking at it from that a little bit of a fan point of view. But I like Matt Burton when he's got the ball in his hands more, and he doesn't have to wait. The centre's one of those positions. It can be quite tricky. Playing at a championship team, he's going to get plenty of ball. But in a team that's struggled since his arrival at the Dogs, you can't. I don't think you can afford to have him in the centres just waiting in the wings. You need him with the football in his hand, and obviously, his boot is phenomenal. So the kicking game is always important, but I think this year it's going to be even more vital, especially if you've got Hutchison next to him. Matt Burton's going to be the predominant kicker.
You speak as a fan. Doggies fans are feeling excited. I think they think this team can potentially fight for a final spot. I mean, it's still missing in a few positions, still lacking in some areas. But do you reckon they got enough talent to sort of get to the finals? I think if they play to their potential, I certainly do think they can. I spoke about the players coming in. Let's not forget as well, Viliami Kickout. He is like another signing as well. He missed the majority of last season through injury. Look, the middles are going to be questioned externally, but I think they've got to get that collective identity. And I think, look, they can challenge for a spot in the 8 if
everything goes well for them this season.
And what do they need to do to be successful? Then you talk about the forwards working as a collective. What else do they need to do?
Yeah, well, it comes down to the forwards working as a group and not relying on one individual to drag them over the line, because I just don't think they've got that person in the team yet. And Stephen Crichton to showcase just what he's all about. And anybody that watches this man knows he's got that in his arsenal. Like, you speak about that, the Matt Burton playing at centre at the championship team and then coming into the halves. Like, if Stephen Crichton, wherever he plays on the field, if he comes and takes that fullback role, he's there because you need the ball in his hands. You need him to do his magic. And not just that, but the influence he's already starting to have on everybody in and around that football club, that could be one of the greatest signings the Bulldogs have ever made.
And you're thinking top 8 spot potentially?
I'm thinking they'll be fighting for that top 8.
Say 8 to 12, around that.
In and around the sort of 6 to 10.
6 to 10, okay. We'll see. I'm less ambitious about the Dogs, I think.
Okay.
I reckon they're probably in the bottom 4 again. They're still just missing a lot in the forwards, in the spine, to be a true top 8 team. When you look at how many good teams there are this year, which we're going to get to some of those good teams. We started with the poor teams, but there's just so much, Jimmy, this year.
Look, Charlie, I don't disagree that the level of competition is insane. We say this each and every year, but there's, like, how do you split some of these teams? It's what makes our competition special. It really does.
And if you're hoping for a top 8, everyone, Jimmy's too scared this year to do a top 8 because he got it wrong last year. He had the Broncos outside the top 8. And I think you had the Warriors for the spoon, maybe?
No, I didn't. I think I had them second.
Second, okay, yeah. So that's all right. Doesn't want to
talk about this year. Come on, what have you got for us?
All right, the Gold Coast Titans, they finished 14th. And it was interesting, though. They sacked Holbrook when they were in the finals race. Yeah. So although they finished 14th, I think they're a better team than that. I think just things went a bit downhill after they sacked Holbrook. Cummings for the year ahead, they've got Keenan Palacia, very good player coming over from Broncos, and Harley Smith-Shields, a good young outside back coming over from Canberra. But the main storyline around the Titans is your former coach, Des Hasler. He's jumped in the hot seat. And, I mean, I think Gold Coast fans are desperate for someone to help turn the club around. Do you think Desi can be that man?
Yeah, look, he'll have an instant impact. He'll have them certainly fit and well drilled and very aware of what the opposition is going to be thrown at them. You look at Desi's record; he had an instant impact at the Bulldogs. Then he left, went back to Manly, had an instant impact there, and I think we'll see the same again at the Titans. Just this is a little bit different though, just because of the club's struggled psychologically. Mm-hmm. You look at those leads that they've let slip, and you look at how the game is going. It's now being designed to increase the momentum swings. And I just worry that, for me, the worry is how the Titans had already struggled with those big momentum swings, how they counteract that. So these new rules that have been put in place in terms of the kickoffs, like, might just sound like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. But they're in there to encourage turnovers of play, to encourage teams to take risks and make the impossible comebacks more possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
So my concern with the Titans is how do they get over that feeling of, okay, we're ahead. We've started really fast in terms of having Mo Fodawaker, Tino on the field at the same time. I personally, you see, if both of those go off, they do tend to dip. I don't know if Des is best off putting one of those on the bench or coming up with an interchange plan of going, like, how can we make sure at least one of those is on? But there's pros and cons in doing that. I don't know how he would manage that. And then obviously Jaden Campbell at the back, similar to Tyrell Sloan, who's shown glimpses of what he's about. He's so exciting. Des will be designing plays and structure to give Jaden Campbell plenty of space out wide. But again, it's that psychological group mentality of we've got to get behind him if he makes an error.
So obviously the forward pack is one of the big strengths for the Titans, but I think we don't talk about the outside backs enough. They've got Brian Kelly's a great player. Philip Sami last year was in incredible form. Khan Pereira looks like one of the best young wingers in the game. Brimston's now in the centres, but you look at the halves, that it maybe is the only area where they're probably lacking something. Kieran Foran and Tanner Boyd. Tanner Boyd, a player who's been shifted into halfback, started out his career as hooker, and Kieran Foran, he's getting towards the end of his career.
Yeah, they need Foran to be fit. That's a going to be a big indicator of the Titans season. I think is how many games Kieran Foran plays from the 24 games that they will play. If he can play 20 plus, the Titans will be a good chance. He'll be so influential for them. Again, it's it's young players. It's a youthful squad. Obviously, Tino's their big leader in terms of their middles, but getting them around the park, Jaden Campbell young and will have a lot on his plate, especially what Des demands of his fullbacks. Tanner Boyd, probably not the loudest or the most experienced player, but that's where Kieran Foran comes in. Verrills will help, but I think how many games Foran plays, that's going to be a big indication to how the Titans go.
And just on Foran, you talk about him and how many games he played. There's no surprise Dave Fafita had his best year in a couple of years last year playing outside Kieran Foran.
That's experience, that's communication, that's advice, and that's, when you can strike up a combination, it brings out the best in people around you. That's why I think, Foran's number of games is vital.
What do they need to do to be successful then this year?
Not get run down, and Kieran Foran plays 20 plus games.
And where do you think they're going to be finishing?
I think similar to the Bulldogs, they'll be somewhere in and around the race for the 8.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they might even make the top 8. Bit of a bold statement for the year ahead. But let's move on to the Dolphins then. They finished 13th in their inaugural year, but they've got some great players coming in. Herbie Farnworth and Tom Flegler headline it, but Jake Cavarillo from the Dogs is a great signing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Flegler's huge. He is huge. You look at their forwards last year, some sort of coming to the back end of their career, but Flegler just brings in this new passion. It ignites the fuse. I think he's a huge loss for the Broncos. Yeah, obviously they got Pat Carrigan, Payne Haas in there, but I love what Flegler brings. I think he's up there with the best front rows in the game. I really do. And obviously Herbie Farnworth, outstanding talent. Another one that will be certainly missed at the Broncos. Just, I guess, looking at it, the Dolphins, that they played on a lot of emotion last year, in inaugural year. I think they caught a lot of teams by surprise. A lot of teams underestimated them. I think very first game of the season, they played the Sydney Roosters. Those two things, emotion and teams underestimating them. Well, I can't envisage anybody underestimating this team now. So I think they're going to be in for a harder year than what they had last season. And
it looks like it's probably going to be Wayne Bennett's last year at the Dolphins. That was the initial plan anyway. He was going to come in for 2 years, and then your man Christian Wolf was going to take over. That hasn't been spoken about much lately, so I don't know if they've pivoted from that plan at all. I'm sure Christian Wolf's probably keen to get in there and be the head coach, and Wayne's probably got a few other plans in the pipeline. But if this is going to be his last year, do you think that could, again, get some more emotion out of the players? If we're farewelling Wayne, it's just another little thing to try and lift this team up.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Charlie. It hasn't been spoken about, but that could be the narrative that this club taps into.
Last year was a resounding success, even though they finished 13th.
They took everybody by surprise. Yeah. Genuinely surprised at A, the number of games that they won, and B, the ability to compete most weeks.
Yeah, but what do they need to do then this year for it to be a success?
Well, I think for me, when you look at the success that they had last year, don't view it as a success. They've got to, they can't be happy with that. We're all there patting them on the back, but they finished 13th.
Yep.
And they probably need to look at that and some of those leaders and go, well, yeah, we did okay, but if that's our marker of success, 13th, well, no.
Just quickly, we haven't spoken about the Hammer. Just want to talk about him quickly before we move on from the Dolphins. He's a player that really, to take rugby league gurus saying it could be anything. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. He looks like could really be one of the best fullbacks in the game.
Mate, the competition for fullbacks is absolutely insane, and I think the way this year, again, depending on how the referees interpret these new, not rules, but the no blockers allowed, no downtowns, no one getting in front of play the ball on the kick chase, could really see the fullbacks of this competition go to another level. And I think when you mentioned someone like the Hammer, how's he going to enjoy seeing all that space? So the fullbacks are in for a big year. I think the position of fullback becomes even more important.
Yeah, and it's already one of the most important positions in the game. But just because even if you look at those teams that we've spoken about so far that had a poor year last year, there's question marks over their fullback spot. Whereas now we start to looking at, like I'm just looking at my papers ahead, and every team almost has a gun fullback.
Notice that you have taken the staple.
I have unstapled, just because the order was a bit all over the place. So I've just sort of,
Well, I think the argument to that is, the Bulldogs have plenty of options or quality options there at fullback, especially if Stephen Crichton takes the reins.
Yeah, but it's still question marks around it. Dogs fans, it's going to be a tough year. Where did you say where you think the Dolphins are going to come? I don't think you did.
No, I think again they'll be in and around fighting for the top 8. For me, their keys to success: forward pack very, very strong. You mentioned the Hammer, plenty of strike out wide. It's going to come down to Katoa, who's still very young.
Hope he's fit as well. Remember there was this stuff with his neck last year? I hope he's okay and I hope he plays well. Yeah. He's expected, I think, to play in round 1, which is good news.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Katoa, as he gets more and more games under his belt, he's it's hard because he is, I think he's only 20 now or 21 maybe. It's a lot of pressure on a kid, but I think he'll embrace that pressure, and him and Sean O'Sullivan have got to guide the team around and get the ball to the right people. I think him linking up with Farnworth and the Hammer is vital for their team.
And great news, Katoa's playing in the first trial, so I hope he can stay healthy and have a big year, because when you hear neck injuries, it's always scary. But the Manly Seagulls, Jimmy, they finished 12th, and the reason they finished 12th was because Tom Trbojevic barely played. And really, it looks like it's going to be another year where Manly's success is all going to come down to, is Tom Trbojevic fit?
Simple as that, isn't it?
It really is.
Brooks will be interesting. See how he goes. Less pressure on him. Smart signing.
Have you seen they're calling it Brooksvale as well now?
Oh, God. What? Because he scored a hat-trick in a trial game?
Against 45-year-olds.
Yeah.
The South B team, C team, D team.
Yeah. Brooks, very interesting. Cherry Evans, again, like, how can he keep performing? He can't do much more. But you're right, it's going to come down to Tommy Turbo. I think Kohler could be interesting as well, whether or not they interchange. He's got speed to burn. I'm just thinking from an attacking point of view. Tom Trbojevic got all the experience there at fullback, but it wouldn't surprise me to see those two interchange, especially if they're chasing points. That Tom Trbojevic, he's great all around. We see him come through the middle, but if they get a shift out wide, I don't think there's many more players you'd want on that 3-on-2 situation than Kohler. You don't necessarily want him on 2-on-1. You want him on 3-on-2. Get around the opposing halfback and create that opportunity, and then just absolutely gun it. He is rapid.
Yeah, it's some amazing moments last year when he got in open space. The other one, Nathan Brown now has been upgraded to a top 30 spot. That broke yesterday. So he was on a train trial, so it was mean he wasn't going to be able to play until round 11, but now he can play in round 1, which is a big boost for them. And supposedly he's been killing it in training. Yeah,
well, he's a quality player. I've always liked Nathan Brown when he brings so much aggression. Didn't he get sent off after just coming on last year or the season before? Something like that. So he brings a lot of spice to any team that he plays at. So he'll be a welcome addition. I think, Ola Kawatu last season was arguably the best back row for the first 4 or 5 games, and then just didn't manage to have the same level of impact. I think if he can find that consistent form for a full season, that'll be massively beneficial. Obviously, Josh Schuster as well, just because he takes up so much of the salary cap space, a lot of eyes on him, a lot of expectation on him to, he moves from 5'8" to edge back row now. Massive responsibility on his shoulders because of the price tag that he brings. That you're always going to get that pressure. And he can have a huge influence in the dressing room as well. When you're on that money, that's part of your job.
What do you make of Paseka? He looks like when you're at an NRL game and you see him in person, he's huge. He's like, it's just unbelievable. He's athletic. He moves well for a guy his size as well. And he has these moments where he busts through the line frequently throughout the year, but he just doesn't seem to be able to stay on the field for enough minutes. Is that the biggest concern with him, is fitness? Or do you think maybe this year he could develop into one of the top front rowers in the game?
He's certainly got that potential, and I guess to be one of the best front rowers in the comp, you need to be knocking out 50, 60 minutes a game. It's just, you get to have more influence. But again, with Nathan Brown coming in, Jake Taborovich takes up a lot of minutes as well. So with the other middle forwards, you are limited there to the amount of game time, because they want Jake on the field for as long as possible because of all the clean-up work that he does. So maybe with a guy like Paseka, you go, we maybe don't need you to do the big moments. We just need the little moments like Jake does and still have those big moments. And that's how you develop longer minutes, is having the coach trust you to make sure you look after all the little moments and all the just-in-case moments as well.
The other one is Josh Schuster. Obviously, looks like he's not going to go to Las Vegas. Hasn't been able to train much during the preseason. He had the finger injury, chicken pox, all sorts of things going wrong with him this offseason. They've put a lot of money into him, so they're obviously probably disappointed with where he's at the moment, but could he be an important player for them? Yeah,
just on Josh Schuster, Charlie spoke about him a little bit earlier. I sort of feel sorry for him in a way. Like, he's not had the best off-season by all reports in terms of injury and illness. Like, nobody can really control that. But unfortunately, he's on he comes with a big price tag. And whenever you're on a big price tag, people have expectations. So there's going to be expectations in and around him. Obviously, started on an edge, then moved to the halves, back from 5'8" to an edge. We see what he is capable of doing with the ball. He just needs to be fit and conditioned to be able to do that. And, if he's not, teams are going to look to spot him in defence, make him do plenty of defensive work, and he just won't have the legs. So Josh Schuster knows what he needs to do, and so does Seabold. And like I say, when you're paying someone $800,000 a year, being the top 5% of earners, you have an influence on the game, and you have an influence on the dressing room as well. That's part of your role.
We spoke about Tom Trbojevich's health being the key to their success. Is that it? Is for them to be successful, does Tom need to be fit?
Basically, yeah. That's it. Like, if he's fit, they'll be challenging.
Yeah.
If he's not, like we said, Kohler's good, but he probably doesn't do, or he's not at that level where he can organise defensive lines. No, he's great for those supernova moments.
Yeah.
But he's not as cluey as Tom just yet. So
Garrett could shift to fullback as well. There's another option, but it's not the same, is it? It's just not the same.
It's just not the same.
So if they have him fit, top 4?
No.
Where do you think then?
I still think they'll be in and around challenging for
6 to 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know there's going to be a lot of teams on that 6 to 10.
Yeah.
But
I reckon if we go back at the end of this podcast and look at where you put teams, it's like 6 to 10, everyone. Yeah, 6 to 10.
You know what? I think the Cowboys are coming up, and that's probably where they are as well.
Yeah, let's do the Cowboys, then they finish 11th.
And the Eels, they're coming up. Souths will be the same. Yeah.
6 to 10, you reckon?
Yeah. Just.
Well, all right. Cowboys then finish 11th, Jimmy, after making a prelim in 2022. It was a case of almost second-year syndrome for the Cowboys with Todd Payton there. They brought Jake Clifford in and Thomas McKaylee. They've lost Peter Hiku and James Tarmow. I think the big news around them is the shake-ups they've had this off-season, though. You obviously, we've spoken about it heaps. They've changed the captaincies. Now Ruben Cotter is going to come in as captain alongside Tom Dearden. But now they've released one of their star players, Luciano Leilua. So I don't know if it's a bit, if we're sort of, overthinking it here. But if you look at their offseason, they've changed the captains, and now on the week leading into trials, they lose one of their better players, in my opinion.
Well, you say that in losing one of their better players. In terms of this Cowboys lineup, it's not a massive loss.
No, because
when
they've
you
got
look at the players,
who can
and
come in.
Jeremiah Nanai, Tamalolo at lock. This is one of the I mentioned it on the podcast previously, that look at the number of players in and around that back row, that middle, where you can't please them all. So now with Leilua going, who would play 60 minutes, that's 60 minutes that someone gets to fill. So the young lads get it, but also Tamalolo gets his 60 minutes back.
Yeah, but wouldn't you let him go? Is that not strange? It's like, wouldn't you just, if you want to get the young guys playing, just keep him, make him play off the bench or make him play in reserve grade?
Yeah, but then the team dynamic of not everybody's happy. You try and please everybody, you please no one. So if everyone's getting 35 to 40 minutes.
So if someone's unhappy, you just let him go.
That's how team dynamics work. And I think you've probably, maybe that's been part of the conversation. Let's take the captain responsibility off Tamalolo, but let's give him his minutes. But we want to make him happy, make Jeremiah Nanai, Lukey, Finifuaki happy.
Yeah,
that they're going to get their minutes now.
I will say this: I think Helam Lukey could become one of the best back rowers in the game. Genuinely, I think the last couple of years he's had a couple of injuries. He did his ACL a couple of years ago. This year he was sort of in and out with injuries. He is so good.
Specimen.
He is so good.
He is like when he gets going, he looks almost impossible to tackle. There's a few edge back rowers like that. Ola Kawatu's another one, but he plays with that level of excitement, and he still looks like he's got plenty of improvement left in him as well. You can almost see, like I say, a specimen, his body type. He still doesn't look like he's fully developed yet. Yep. So it's a frightening thought where he could get to. I think the Cowboys look. Ruben Cotter came. He's an absolute superstar, like at Origin level. He brings his best and his guts every single week. I still wonder if they miss Tom Gilbert. The impact that he would have in and around training. That probably comes now to Cotter to sort of lead that. Especially, you look at Gilbert and the influence he'd have on some of those young edge back rowers.
Especially that he shifted to the middle at the Dolphins. Yeah. He's playing the middle there, whereas he was playing more on the edge for the Cowboys. Where if you put Gilbert in McLean's position, Jordan McLean's position, that's an upgrade there.
Well, I'm just more saying about the experience that he would bring, and maybe the professionalism.
Yeah.
I think a highlight for me last year is Dolphins played the Broncos, and Tony Staggs is, when he scored that try and he's like, "This is our house." It's like, well, who was chasing him? It was Tom Gilbert.
Eddie Jones noticed that as well.
He did,
because he wanted to try and get him over to rugby.
Well, it's those little things. So who's going to assume that responsibility? And then how the players and the playing group as a whole, but also the players, i.e. Townsend and Tamalolo, respond to this. Don't know how do you view it? Is it are you stripped of the captaincy? You've been dropped as a captain, demoted.
How would you view it? You were captain at a lot of the clubs you played at.
Well, it depends on how it was presented.
Well, okay, I'll present to you. We've got these couple young players coming through, and we think probably you've got 3 years. You got 3 years left in the contract. We want to sort of move into that new era now. You're still a leader of the group, but we're going to give these guys the captaincy.
I reckon you'd be well within your rights to feel pretty dejected. Like you're almost saying like, well, I'm not good enough, or you'd be thinking I failed, or the coach doesn't have faith in me, and those. You can say the right things and think the right things, but sometimes it can irk you when a coach isn't feeling you. Like, it sort of happened to me a few times. I'm like, well, I'm not getting the love, and that's maybe how they'll view it. I don't know. I guess I guess time will tell. And even with an experienced guy like Townsend, how much is he actually going to be playing this year? And I mentioned there about Tamalolo, like that's where I think he'll get, and maybe this is why it's happened. But what happens if he's only getting 40 minutes, and then the pressure of the press and the influence that Townsend and especially Tamalolo has in that dressing room and in the town of Townsville? Like this is a brave call, a ballsy call from Todd Payton, and no doubt he's you think this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. This is something he's considered the flow-on effect, and what this is going to look like in not just the decision a week after, like 6 months after, halfway through the season. You'd hope that people like Townsend and Tamalolo don't just go into their shell, because you're going to need them to stand up.
Yeah. And we spoke about Tom Duffy, who's a young player at the Cowboys, when we spoke about the Cowboys, but we completely forgot about Jake Clifford. And you could argue Jake Clifford is, at this stage of his career, a better player than Chad Townsend. Like, maybe we could see Jake Clifford get first crack at the 7 jersey.
Yeah, well, there's a three-way battle going on for the half, or sorry, two-way, because Dearden's going to play.
Yep.
Like they've put
locked in, captain.
Yeah, so Dearden's playing, and then you've got Clifford or Townsend. Like, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, Jimmy, how the Cowboys go this year. But what do they need to do to be successful, do you think?
Have a happy camp. That's what it's going to come down to. A lot of young players there that can be influenced or swayed. Have a happy camp, and make sure those young lads are fighting for the cause. They've got some, like we say, some of the quality in their edges and the youth that they've got. That's what it's going to come down to.
Where have you got them finishing then? Is that 6 to 10 range?
6 to 10 range.
Oh, get used to it. Everyone listening, get used to it. Here we go. James Graham, the softest front rower to ever play the game. Parramatta Eels finished 10th last year, Jimmy. They've not really got anyone major of note coming or going. I mean, Josh Hodgson, but he didn't play much for them last year. He's retired. Wanga Blake's leaving. Jack Murchie's leaving. Mitch Rain's leaving. They brought in Morgan Harper and Kelma Tuolangi. I think it's a tough one for the Eels. When we spoke about them in 2022, it was all about their premiership window closing. And last year sort of made it seem like everyone was correct about that. Looking at their squad this year, do you think that's a team that can contend for the title?
Look, I don't. I've got a bit of a worry about Para this year. I really do. Look, I think the buzz of 2020 last year missing the 8. No real, like you say, no real signings of note that's going to come in and ignite the group and spark any real change. I've got big worries. I think Dylan Brown had his issues last year. Him having a full season will be important. That partnership with Mitchell Moses. I think Mitchell Moses is one of the one of the best halves in the competition. Obviously, a huge boost that he's re-signed. Campbell Gillard and Borlo, again, not too dissimilar to the Titans. In when those two come off, you notice the dip. You really do. You notice the intensity dip, and they've been they go unbelievably hard. But it wears you down. And Campbell Gillard has been a player. I think he can still play at that level, but he sometimes he can have, because of the physicality and the brutality that he plays with. It's hard to do that each and every week. So, look, they've got some. The way Parramatta are successful, I think it's with offloads. Like that's going to be their style. So, you've got Borlo who can ball play and offload, Matson offload, Sean Lane offload, Hopgood, one of the best offloaders in the competition. I think that's going to be their style this year. But then, you look at the strike. So you've got that offload, but then who'd you go to?
Penasini's a great outside back.
He is, but every team's got great outside backs.
Yeah.
You know, like that for me is the question. You know, that's their style. But then, so I think what you do is you look to hope to wear teams down like that, and it's crazy. This is a Parramatta team that beat Penrith twice last year.
Yeah,
like they can do that, but why do they struggle with consistency? They struggled with consistency last year.
You know, Cronulla are a team that struggles against the top 8 teams. Parramatta Eels always seems to rise to the challenge against top 8 teams, but then the games when they've got the Tigers at home, they just fumble their way through it.
Like maybe it's an attitude thing. That's I guess from the outside looking in, that's what you'd point to. Is why are they so good in the games against Penrith? Like they're so good to watch against the Panthers, and then the following week you're like, what? Or you go and they go in to play the Panthers, and you're like, these have got no hope. They've been dog shit for the past 4 weeks, and then it's like
they win.
Oh, hang on, like what's going on here? So that's the issue for the Eels. But I got big worries. I really do.
Big year for Dylan Brown. Obviously, last year was a tough year for him with all the off-field stuff that was going on as well. Missed a lot of footy due to that. But this year, hopefully he can stay on the field for the whole year. And if he does, I mean, he's such a good 5'8". He really is.
He is, yeah. He's all class when he's on. Like when he demands the football, and gets it, and he's got options in and around him. He's so good to watch.
What do they need to do to be successful then, Jimmy?
Hope that their offload style pays dividends, and then have the ability to finish. Consistency. Like that's really what it is.
Have you got them 6 to 10? By the sounds of it, you don't.
I think they'll be outside the 8 again.
So where have you got them then? Have you got them
outside the 8?
9 to 12?
Just outside the 8.
Just bottom half of the table. Big, bold call. South Sydney Rabbitohs finished 9th. They missed the top 8 for the first time since 2017, but they've got a man named Jack Whiten joining the team. Obviously, it's fair to say last year was a massive failure. Massive failure by the South Sydney standards. And it was also a dramatic year as well. Like, and a legend of the club's Sam Burgess leaving as assistant coach halfway through the year. It was a really sort of toxic end to the year. But with someone like Jack Whiten coming in, and they can move past the Sam Burgess drama and just focus on this year, they've got the roster to really beat any team on their day. Yeah, look, South Sydney, it was all signs were pointing to another premiership after the first 8 rounds. Magic round. Was it Magic round? They beat the Storm and they were sitting top, I think, something like that. It was like, okay, well, let's get ready for the South Sydney bandwagon. You know, you'd be driving through Redfern and not be able to move for South's jerseys. So that's what we were all expecting and anticipating. But, you know, it was Latrell Mitchell's injury, and, you know, their season went into free fall. Then they had the distractions at the back end of it. I think Jack Whiten is a great signing. It'll be interesting to see how he fits in. Obviously, devastating news to see Campbell Graham out for about 6 months with a sternum injury. Like, they are not fun. But surgery on your sternum, like I've had my fair share of sternum injuries, but just get them injected. So obviously what he's had done is pretty brutal. But I think that then opens up the door for Jack Whiten to come in at centre. I thought potentially he might move into the halves, because I think Isaiah Tass is too good to play reserve grade. Just be interesting to see how they can fit all that quality in that outside back line. So you've got Mitchell that needs his hands on the football, Cody Walker, Damien Cook out of dummy half. I think Ilias probably needs to demand more of it and demand more of himself. He is still young and a developing player, but I think, you know, instead of South's just looking for Cody, Latrell, Tass or Whiten, he needs to demand more of it. Good thing about Jack Whiten being there as well is you can play him at fullback if Latrell is missing some time. And he's a great... When he was playing fullback for the Raiders back in the day, he did a great job there. Yeah, I mean, that obviously they've lost their backup in Taff. Yeah. So
Yeah, that could happen. Maybe they'll interchange between centre and fullback. But really, mate, like, I know Jack Whiten does a good job, but Latrell Mitchell, like, he
Different gravy.
He was special. The opening exchanges of last year, like, he was looking. He looked so comfortable. He looked like he didn't even not that he wasn't trying. He looked like he didn't need to try. It looked like it was easy. It looked like sometimes it was men against boys. That's what he has the ability to do. So, yeah, and I don't think it's no coincidence that, you know, he gets injured and their season went into freefall. Maybe that's where Jack Whiten comes in, and you know that Latrell might have an injury, then it's Jack's turn. I think that might be more of the reason behind that signing than the combination. Maybe I'm looking, instead of the combination, it's for Jack Whiten to, when Latrell's maybe out of form or injured or potentially suspended, but certainly around Origin, like, it's Jack's time to shine. Maybe there was an over-reliance on him, and maybe Jack Whiten comes in and assumes that responsibility. But I think Ilias is one that probably needs to take a little bit more control too.
Jason Demetriou is one of the best coaches in the game, in my opinion, but I think it would be fair to say that he's probably under a lot of pressure this year, given the way South went. If they struggle again this year, it's going to be probably hard for JD to survive that, I think.
Yeah, he can't not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
As an absolute minimum. But I think they will.
Your man Tom Burgess, this is going to be his last year in the NRL as well.
Yeah, it'd be sad to see him go, actually. He's lasted the longest of all the Burgess brothers, and I think, you know, that we often speak about narratives and things you can tap into, sort of end of an era there at South, and I think, you know, the family connection and what they've done for that football club, they'll be tapping into that as the season goes on. Tom won't want it to make it about him, but no doubt there'll be some emotional scenes.
What do they need to do to be successful?
Have Latrell Mitchell fit. Similar to probably not too dissimilar to Manly. I think Tommy Tebojevic is more important to Manly than Latrell is in this team, with the addition of Jack Whiten. But Latrell, again, he needs probably 80% of the games that he's eligible for with Origin and all that stuff. And then Ilias to take a bit more responsibility. Or even just be given or demand a bit more responsibility, because it's hard there. You look at a guy like Ilias, and you've got Cook, who likes to run. You've got Latrell that wants the ball. Cody Walker gets it when he wants. Sometimes Ilias is going to have to stand up and say, give me the football.
Well, where are we going to finish then, Jimmy?
3-6.
3-6. I like it. I hope they go well this year. That was the one issue with the finals last year, was I think some of the better teams missed the 8, and we were kind of just waiting for the grand final. Whereas I think if you get the Cowboys and the South up into that top 8, it's better for the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they say that about every club.
No, but you'll get better contests in the finals.
I really don't like that. Like, it's better for the game when this team's going well.
But it's better. It's better for the spectator as well, unless you support the team that's made the top 8.
Yeah, look, I have a difficult time liking South Sydney.
Yeah.
Some tough battles against them. And it's hard because I've got some friends in there as well. I'm like, like Tom's there.
Jason Demetriou's a great man as well.
JD's a good fella. You know, I actually, you know, I love watching Latrell and Cody Walker do their thing.
Exactly. Wouldn't you rather see Latrell Mitchell playing finals?
Yeah, you would, but not South. Just they've broke my heart too many times.
Well, let's go to a team.
We've not even probably spoke about arguably one of the best players in the game, Cameron Murray. Like,
yeah, we didn't talk about him.
We didn't even bring him up.
No, and we should. He's their captain as well.
He is.
Well, let's move on to a team that probably will miss the top 8 this year, even though they made it last year. The Canberra Raiders. They finished 8th, lost to the Knights in week 1 of finals. They've got a couple of players coming in with KO Weeks, Zach Hoskin, and Simi Sasagi, but they're losing Jared Croker and Jack Whiten, 2 of their leaders at the club. Yeah, a lot of experience has gone from the Raiders. You know, I've spoken many times on this episode of the podcast about tapping into a narrative. You know, Ricky Stewart can galvanise a group, and he
he's in for a huge coaching year. Ricky Stewart. If this team gets anywhere near the finals, it's because Ricky Stewart. And it's as simple as that. They're down on experience. Obviously, you've got Papali'i and Elliot Whitehead there that have been around the block for a number of years, but they lose Croker, they lose Whiten. They lose Whiten, they go-to man. We saw how emotional he was at leaving Canberra, like what that club means to him. The impact that he has in the dressing room is huge by all accounts. Looking at this team on paper, strong in the forward packs, but some coming towards the back end of it. You've got Corey Horsburgh in there as well. But look, I guess Tomoko is a quality strike centre, but I think it's one of those that really where's their superstar?
Yeah, Xavier Savage flashed some potential last year. He's very young though, very raw.
Again, he's got big potential, similar to someone like Sloan at fullback. There's something you could work with there, but how often is he going to be in positions to do his thing? And with the halves and Fogarty and Weeks and Wolford at 9, all good first graders, but how creative are they going to be for a Xavier Savage of the world?
It's tough. You do look at their team, we don't know much about Ethan Strange. By all accounts, he's a really good young player. KO Weeks, when we saw him play for Manly, he did struggle defensively.
Yeah, but he probably did. It's a difficult spot defending in the halves, but he'll get plenty of help. Whoever he's outside there, either Hudson Young or Elliot Whitehead, they're two quality defenders, so he'll get a little bit more help this year. But look, that for me, it's Canberra is Ricky Stewart and his ability to tap into a narrative. We saw him do that. He approached the finals like a pissed off coach, and he was fed up of hearing that Canberra were just there to make up the numbers, and they nearly went up and did a number on Newcastle in round one of the finals. Again, most people just thinking they're here to. Well, I think Newcastle did. Packed house, couldn't get a seat, couldn't get a ticket for the game. Everyone's just thinking they're going to rock up and watch Newcastle romp home, but Canberra and Ricky Stewart had other ideas. But how long can you keep that narrative going? How long can you keep riding on that emotion? It could be a tough year for the Raiders.
So Ricky's the key for them to be successful, but where do you think they are going to finish?
Yeah, I think they'll be definitely outside the 8 this year.
Whereabouts outside the 8?
Somewhere outside the 8.
Oh, God, this is embarrassing. Let's move to the Sydney Roosters then, Jimmy. They finished 7th last year. It looked like, for most of the year, they were going to miss the finals. And they went on a great run to finish the year. Knocked out in week 2 against Melbourne. Apologies, we mentioned, I think we said they got to knocked out week 1 a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about them. But yeah, knocked out in week 2 against Melbourne. They've got now Dom Young and Spencer Leniu coming to the club, and they are basically stacked from 1 to 17. They
are absolutely stacked. How are they going to fit all these outside backs in? They are so good on paper. I wonder how, but it's just about how they're going to be on grass. Because that's what it comes down to. How the combination's going to work. They've got some frightening ability, and we spoke about an often team. People speak about windows. You look at sort of the roster and some of the age of key players like Tedesco, like Luke Keary, Jared likely leaving. But they've Angus Crichton likely leaving, Sualihi leaving, Manu leaving. I reckon this is all in. This is one of those you look around those key players in the dressing room and go, yeah, this is our time. This is our one to go and get. They've been crippled by injuries for a number of seasons, the Roosters. If they can stay healthy, they're in the mixer.
Fully fit, what do you think their forward pack should look like? Because I know you said I'm overthinking it, but Siwa Wong is not in the 17 for the trial.
He's got to play, mate. He's a
So you've got
Then
so run me through
how
who's
do you fit them all in? You've probably got Collins and Jared start. If Jared's obviously suspended for round 1.
Yeah.
The edges, then you go maybe Wong and Crichton and Radley at lock.
So you got Wong and Crichton. So then you've got Nat Butcher and Tupanua on the bench.
And Lenu.
And then have you got Connor Watson?
Connor Watson on the bench.
So interestingly, they've got Sandon Smith on the bench. So in that team, if they're fully fit, you've got no Egan Butcher. You've got no Tyrrell May.
Jesus.
And you've got no Sandon Smith. I mean,
I guess you don't.
Yeah, and
I guess you don't. They've got depth in the forwards. They've got depth in the outside backs. Like, how do you pick the outside backs? So you got Tedesco at 1, maybe Suolihi and Billy Smith in the centres, Dominic Young on one wing, Tupou on the other.
You haven't mentioned Manu there.
But then Manu's not. Yeah. So Manu's got to be one centre.
Yeah.
Suolihi. I reckon you go Manu, Billy Smith.
Yeah.
In the centres. Then you got Suolihi on a wing and Dom Young on a wing.
Yes,
and then there's no room for Tupou.
Tupou, who is one of the Roosters' greatest other wingers, a player who Trent Robinson loves.
Yeah. Good luck naming your 17th. Teamless Tuesday is going to be interesting.
That would be an awful job, wouldn't it? And then Connor Watson, Sandon Smith, that's another thing. Like
it's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? But
also, your man, Brandon Smith. Or our man, the Byron's man. He's had a tough start to the year when he first got to Sydney, but when he got fit towards the end of the year, he was awesome.
Yeah, he was. He showed to everybody why the Roosters went so hard for him. I think that injury to his hand, obviously, not ideal. A difficult start there for the Roosters. They were still finding their feet, but the back end of the season, he was a big reason why they came good at the end.
What do they need to do to be successful then, Jimmy?
You know, just speaking about their team, I reckon Sam Walker, him back in, finding that consistency. I reckon if he can perform to his potential, they'll go a long way to winning it. He doesn't have too much pressure on him because he's got plenty of help around him. But, if that combination between Keary and Walker can develop and blossom, I think we'll see a very, very good side. Can you have too many alphas in a team ever? Just thinking about that team and how stacked it is. I mean, there's so many alphas. Yeah, and more like I said, talking about the Cowboys fighting for position, you got to try and keep everybody happy. I think the good thing about the guy like Jared, he probably knows his best football is involving 40 minutes. He doesn't need to do too much more. I think he's the alpha, but he's probably accepted that. And obviously they'll be impacted through state of origin as well, most likely. But yeah, that could be a potential problem, like how you keep everybody happy. But the good teams find a way to do it. Where have you got them finishing? I think they'll be the top 4. Top 4, okay. Cronulla Sharks, Jimmy, the team that were knocked out by the Sydney Roosters last year. They finished 6th. Unfortunately for them, they can't win a finals game. They can't beat a top 8 team. They've got this now flat track bully tag around them. And it's something that they're probably not going to shake unless they can start beating these top 8 teams. Yeah, you're right there, Charlie. They've really struggled in the finals, and their record against top 8 teams is woeful. It is. And it's strange because you see them play some weeks and they're amazing. And I guess we spoke about Parramatta. They're a bit the opposite. They rise for the big games and struggle against the lower base teams. But with the Sharks, it's the other way around. I think that season where they finished second, they finished second, knocked out in straight sets. Yeah, I think that they carried their divots a little bit from that going into last year. They lose a lot of experience. Wade Graham, Matt Moylan, Ikavalu, Connor Tracy, who was a great fill-in, who was banging down the door of Will Kennedy. Will Kennedy was class last year, though. There's not much you could do about that. It's a hard one for the for the Sharks this year, losing that experience, and then already with eyes on 25 with Adam Fanua-Blake coming in. Yeah, you speak about keeping everybody happy. Look at those middle forwards that they've got. Probably, I think Nico Hines probably needs a little bit of help. With a lot goes to him for that creative spark. Probably needs a few other players to chip in.
Do you prefer Braden Trindle partnering up with him than he has had with Moylan the last couple of years when Moylan's been fit? Or the last couple of years?
I think that combination's got a lot of potential. I really do. With Kennedy as well, and obviously Brayley at 9. I think that spine hasn't reached its potential just yet.
Kyler Iro's an interesting player. It looks like he's going to maybe get the nod in the centres to start the year ahead of Sifa Talakai.
That's a huge call.
He's been killing it apparently in reserve grade like last year.
Is he any relation to Kevin Iro and Tony Iro, do you know?
I'm not sure. Let us know in the comments if you know. The other, Toby Rudolph, big thing about him, Jimmy, obviously he's got a bit of a loose personality. He's going to be sober this entire year.
Is he?
Yeah. Off the alcohol for the whole year.
Good for him. If he thinks that will make a positive difference and contribution, then good for him to do that. That's a big call though.
A big call getting off the drink?
No. I'm saying with Iro and Sifa Talakai.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed yet. Obviously, we'll see how the trials go, but that's the talk.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
What do they need to do to be successful then, Jimmy?
Have someone help chip in with Nico. I think Nico as well. He was scarred from Origin. That really hurt him last year. He wasn't the same player after that, and I know he does a lot of work in the mind space and the psychological aspect. I think Nico can put that behind him, move forward, and not dwell on it or not get drowned in the noise around Origin. And even when talk of who's going to play, for New South Wales, who's going to partner Cleary, if Nico can find that ability to just focus on himself and what he can do for Cronulla, it's going to be massive.
And where have you got them finishing?
6 to 10.
6 to 10, nice. Good stuff.
No one's finishing 5th. I'm not going to have anyone 5th.
5th, no. Well, mate, you've not had anyone finishing anywhere. You're a rugby league analyst and you're not even doing a ladder. It's soft.
I know. Well, no, you know what, Charlie? I'm just different.
Yeah.
I'm just I don't conform.
No.
Oh, you got to do this ladder. No, don't. You're not going to make me do it. I'm not going to conform.
Well, you might you might have to do ladders. Someone might ask you a ladder every year. Because you work for other broadcasts, Fox Sports or
I'll just put an alphabetical ladder. So that's
as
my
listed
version
is
of
good.
process.
Yeah. As listed is good.
Because it's my ladder for going into round 1.
Yeah, nice. You know what we should maybe try and look at, because seeing as you love ladders so much, maybe we should look at getting a ladder sponsor.
That's a great idea.
Have a little miniature ladder sit there and we'll read the ladder out every single week. So just in case people can't go on their apps and look at it themselves. All right.
It's like people that read the weather. Never really got that.
Yeah. Also, the way that phones have adapted and we've got the thing, I reckon the weatherman's redundant. I reckon you just brush the weather from the news.
Weather person. I've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time that the weather needs to go. It's irrelevant information.
It's stupid. We check it ourselves.
Or just look outside.
Yeah, but also we have it at our fingertips. We're not going to sit and watch the wait.
Yeah.
We can't flip the news off yet. Love the weather. We've got to see what it's doing in
I want to see what the
Taiwan.
I want to see what the weather's like tomorrow.
And then the world weather would annoy me. It's like, why do I care what the weather's like in Argentina? It doesn't matter.
Well, maybe we want to check the weather in Newcastle Knights because that's our next team.
That is the next team.
Digressed.
Yeah, the Newcastle Knights, they finished 5th, lost in week 2 of finals to the Warriors, and it's a bit like the Manly Sea Eagles. It's all about Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, it sure is. He was noticeable when he wasn't there. They really missed him. And you just wonder, can he replicate that same level of form at the back end of last season again? He won the Dally M basically in half a year. If he can put that over a 6-month period, then the Knights are in the mixer. You look at their coach. O'Brien was gone.
He was gone.
He was actually gone.
The talk was that Knights had even started interviewing potential coaching candidates.
They they were gone. And then look at you know what? I hope that Knights fans carry on that wave of support going into this year. So round 1 up there, Thursday night versus Canberra, like get that stadium packed out. Because that was a special atmosphere to be at. Do you remember the Souths game we were at?
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Like, how good was that?
The final game was unbelievable. It was so loud.
Like, that can be part of that community. That's probably what they need to tap into. Like, and I know they're passionate about their football up there, and they usually come each and every week. But I haven't seen it packed out like that for a long time, and back to back. Like, that was special to be at. That was like, I felt like you could see the influence of the crowd, and I think the crowd got them home against Canberra when everyone's there expecting that big victory. Raiders were winning. The thing with Jack Whiten happened, and the crowd got them home.
Spoke about that last final. It was Dom Young who scored that breakaway try in that finals match to get the Knights back in the game, and he's a big loss. But Lachlan Fitzgibbon's another player who's a big loss, and Kurt Mann was a real culture guy there as well, who filled a role for them wherever he played. So they are losing some cattle.
Yeah, big news that Bradman Best has re-signed. I think that's important that didn't drag on throughout the season, and it's a huge psychological boost to the football club, because one of the best outside backs currently in the game, one of the best centres in the game. We saw what he did at Origin level last year. If he makes a decision to go, other people around him start to go, well, maybe he doesn't believe. Dom Young obviously left. That would be disappointing. But Bradman Best in the team, I think that says to people around him that I'm here to try and win a premiership, and that's what they're going to be building to do. Be interesting to see how the two lads over from England that have signed, 2 young lads with plenty of improvement, actually played. Will Price, it's strange to see him. I still think of him as this little boy that I used to see in the St. Helens Players Bar after a match, like played with his dad. So it'll be really interesting to see how he fits in. If he can fight out a place for 5'8", and obviously Kai Pearce-Paul, that a lot of people in England have huge raps on. So some decent signs there with lots of potential. But I think Kalen Ponga his fitness, again, is going to be massive on how this football side goes.
Jackson Hastings talked up Kai Pearce-Paul very highly on Instagram the other day, and even sort of alluded to him maybe getting the edge back row spot.
Yeah, well, that's where he's there to play.
Yeah, so the predicted side that we've got has Frizzell and Cartwright in, and then Croker, Thompson, Hetherington, the forwards on the bench.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see
Pearce-Paul in there.
Pearce-Paul force his way into an edge.
Where have you got them finishing then, Jimmy?
I reckon they'll be in the 8.
You reckon they're in the 8, the Knights?
I think so.
Wow.
Or maybe I'll put them 6 to 10.
6 to 10.
I don't know. I really should.
I don't know. It's your job to. It's your job to do it. I don't know.
I can't really say I don't know. That's bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 to 10.
6 to 10.
I really should have wrote my predicted ladder and then just gone, ooh.
I reckon the Knights
around it.
Don't want to offend any Knights fans, but I think they're in for a tough year. I think they finish 12 to 16. 12 to 17, sorry. Yeah, big sliders.
Well, you can say that without much backlash.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
But really, I think it's probably important. Like, don't fucking listen to what people say.
But Jimmy, I don't take my divots as well. So if someone wants to bag me about saying the Knights will slide, I'll just water off a duck's back for me. Yeah. So obviously it gets to you.
Yeah, I care what people think about me. Yeah. Because if you don't, you're a narcissist.
Not necessarily. I care about my loved ones' opinions of me. Okay. So they're not necessarily a narcissist. Anyway, the Warriors, the team that you think is going to slide this year.
Unfortunately, I do. I know you said, look at the people that they brought in. Capewell, Harris Tavita, Tuivasa-Sheck. I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't know. I just there's something about it. I can't see them keeping that momentum. Like, they had so much momentum. I just don't know if they can keep it going. I.e. Parramatta 2022.
What do you think about Chanel Harris Tavita having a gap year during his football career, go travelling? It's kind of bizarre, isn't it? It's like he's had a gap year and gone travelling.
Part of me goes like, good on you, lad. But then I'm like, fucking
You're about to have, like, you retire probably when you're 34.
Yeah.
Like, go have your gap
Have a
year
gap
then.
year then. Yeah.
That's like my missus lately is like, oh, yeah, let's go do a year of traveling. I'm like, I've got a few too many things on to just go traveling for a year, you know?
It's one of them. It's like, oh, yeah, like I'm all for it, but the reality is, you know, and I guess for some people they can do that and come back into a job. We'd get someone else in for the bar. Don't worry about that. Coming back to
quick
a job.
replacement. Yeah,
we'd be like, Charlie, who? Oh, he's off. He's fucked off to Thailand. But interesting choices of footballer.
Yeah,
like the, you know, you give up so much, and so many doors are closed, but so many are opened as well. And I reckon as fun as traveling and seeing the world will be, nowhere near what a professional athlete brings you. So I don't know if he's come to his senses and come back, or it was always just going to be a year. But
well, you know, you go travel. I had a gap year when I was younger. I went to Europe, traveled Europe 5 months. But at the end of it, you kind of want to go home. It's like, you know.
Well, maybe that's what he's done.
He's gone away for 6 months. Gone, fuck, I need to go home now.
Yeah, I'm over this French food.
Yeah, straight. He's not in the predicted 17 for the Warriors. They've got the spine of Shans Klukstad, Luke Metcalf, and Sean Johnson, and then Dylan Walker as that utility on the bench. But AFB's obviously leaving. But I think Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, the legend that he is at the club, he'll bring some confidence to those players and some leadership as well.
Yeah, obviously, the player that actually left the game, Charlie, was, you know, one of New Zealand's finest players. Be interesting to see how he fits in at centre. You know, we speak about other clubs and the quality that they've got. Charles Klukstad last year really impressed me with his attitude. Like, for him to know that Tuivasa-Sheck is coming back and basically say, you're not getting my number 1 jersey, pal. Well, or if you are, you're going to have to work for it. He was so impressive. I think for me, that the reasons why I'm so concerned about the Warriors, can they keep that buzz going? I don't know. I guess it remains to be seen. Personally, I've just got a feeling I don't think they will. And I don't know if Sean Johnson can replicate his form from last year.
Yeah,
like, it's
big ask.
It's so difficult to back that year up at that age. Like, and I know he's changed how he played as a footballer, but like, it's a big ask to do it again. I hope I'm wrong, because I think, you know, it's good for rugby league when they're playing finals, and it was good, and there was that momentum of up the wars.
Yeah, it was great. I went to Auckland for one of the games last year, and their crowd is passionate.
Yeah,
Very passionate.
It is, and I hope that, or part of me hopes that I think that the Warriors do go well again, because they create a good buzz of the competition.
You don't think they're going to be successful, but what do they need to be successful?
Well, they need Sean Johnson to fire again. Wadey, that spine has a lot of potential. Johnson, Metcalf, or Harris Tavita, Nickel Cluxter as well. You know, Wade Egan, I reckon he's one of the best dummy halves in the competition. As I said, when he gets out of dummy half, if you're not careful, they'll pull your pants down. So
and come up through the back of you.
Through the back of you. So, thanks, Wade. He's a great player. You know, how much is Adam Fanua-Blake going to be? Can he have the same effect again, knowing he's leaving? You know, it's easy to say yes, but it's very difficult to do. But Sean Johnson, can he play as well as what he did last year? I don't know.
So your big slider for where they're going to finish then?
Outside the 8.
Outside the 8. So your biggest slider is from 4th to 9th, or from 4th to 14th?
I don't know. Just outside the 8.
Just outside the 8. Yeah. Fascinating inside that.
Melbourne. Well, no. It is fascinating. I'll give you the insight on why I think it. Yeah. I've got my rationale.
Okay. All right. Warriors fans, they're some of the most vocal on social media as well, so I'll definitely let you know about it. So if you didn't like people coming after you, they're going to come after you. Melbourne Storm, they finished 3rd and they lost in the prelim. Not really many major signings to talk of except for Sean Bloor, the young guy from the Tigers, coming over. And then they've lost Justin Olam, Tom Eisenhuth, and Tarek Sims. I think the big news for them is Ryan Pappenhausen, and he's named at fullback for the trial, Jimmy.
Yeah. My head's all over the shop with the Storm. Like, it's a mess. I can't get my head around it. Like, the best spine on paper, especially if Pappenhausen fit. But I just don't know. Like, and Bellamy's last year. Jesus Christ, how long have we said that for?
If it is going to be his last year, the playing group will react to
They've
that.
got to.
And they will, though. They love him.
Yeah, they've got to. I don't know. There was something missing in that Melbourne team last year. You know, all their traits that they had around like being difficult to play against, very tidy on the floor. I just don't know. And like these new, I guess if they're interpreted properly and refereed properly, things like putting the blockers in on kicks, like they were really good at those little detail things like that. The downtime rule, these are one of the major exponents of getting their middle forwards down on kick chase, getting past the ruck. Like that's gonna, if referees penalise that, I think, look, Melbourne are a side that did that really well. They blocked their kickers really well. Like these are going to be two new things that Melbourne Storm are going to have to deal with potentially, but you just can't write them off.
You can't. But do you think they are maybe a tired team? Was that what the issue was last year?
I think they missed that experience in the middle. Like they missed Jesse Bromwich, they missed Kenny Bromwich.
They lost Kafusi as well.
Like,
and Brandon Smith. They had a lot of players leaving.
Like they had that's 4 internationals leaving. And 4 very, very top end NRL players all leave. No one really in. And then again, like Sean Bloor comes in, like one pair, like it's just not the same.
No. Sean Bloor could be that player, that diamond in the rough that the Storm find, take from a club where they don't want him. Like,
yeah, he could be Charlie, but there's a difference between being a diamond in the rough and where you can get to versus being a Jesse Bromwich or being a Felice Kafusi. You know, you've got that spine there, but Christian Welsh didn't have his best season. Like he was out of the Origin team. You know, Nelson off the bench, brings so much, but his minutes and impact get limited. I just, your worry is that how much they put into last year, and really when you saw them play some of the top end teams, they were quite far away. And the big addition, obviously, Pappenhausen. A lot of talk around Farlongo, but
looks like
he does in what the 100 minutes we've seen of him. Hard to do it every week, and that's not question him. And can he even get a game? Like, where's he going to play if Pappenhausen's fit? I reckon Pappenhausen's your man. If you're Melbourne, if you're Bellamy, like forget the injuries. He didn't look like he was suffering psychologically when he came back. Obviously, then it was another freak accident. So he's going to get a chance to shine in the trials. You just hope he can stay injury free.
Well, he's playing tonight, so I'm going to be sitting there and watching it for sure.
Me too.
What do they need to do to be successful?
Again, Pappenhausen fit, and their forwards, some of them need better seasons. Yeah, and get back to that identity of Melbourne. Like you used to be. I reckon you could play a game when I was playing, and if you took away if you changed if you were watching a game and changed the kick colour and blurred the faces of the players, you could recognise a Melbourne tackle versus all the other 15 clubs. They had a distinct way of controlling the ground, not even just controlling the ground, controlling the tackle from first impact or simultaneous collision to then just the process. And even like, if you closed your eyes, you went into a tackle, you'd know when Melbourne players were tackling you. They just, observing them last year, they didn't look like that same team on the ground and in the tackle defensively.
Where have you got them finishing then?
I reckon they'll be 3-6.
3-6. Okay, it's the first team to finish in that 3-6 window, I think, so far.
No, I think he put South in there as well.
I think you said South, top 4 maybe.
I think he said 3-6.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. We've got only 2 teams to go, Jimmy. It's not quite been bloke in a bar level season preview. They did that about 7.5 hours, but it has been extensive. And Brisbane Broncos, they had the premiership in their hands, and it all crumbled in the last 20 minutes or so. But they've got a very, very stacked team. However, I don't think we've spoken about it enough, the players they're losing. Capewell, Flegler, Farnworth, Palacia, that's almost 25% of their 17 that made the grand final. It's a big loss.
Yeah, it's big responsibility on some of their leaders, but also some of their young players coming through now that are obviously going to get a lot more time to shine and show their stuff. They're still one of the favourites for the competition, in my opinion, this year. We saw what they did. Can they get over basically having one hand on the trophy? That's what it's going to come down to at the back end of the season. I think at the start it won't matter, but when those big games come, they'll have it in the back of the mind. But I wonder if they'll use it as an awareness piece rather than it might happen again. And I think that's what Kevy should address with them in the off season. And then when those big games come around again.
There's a bit of beef the other day. Adam Reynolds v. Patrick Carrigan, bit of push and shove on a night out, and someone's filmed it, so it's got out that way. They've come out and apologised. Is that a big deal at all, seeing that?
First off, why would you film it?
I don't know.
Why would you film it? Why are Adam Reynolds and Patrick Carrigan being treated as equals?
You reckon Carrigan shouldn't have to wrestle Reynolds?
No, I'm saying Reynolds is trying to do the right thing. He's trying to get him out of there.
Is he?
That's what they've said.
All right, okay. I thought it was just the two of them having an argument and going back and forth. But
I've not seen the footage. I don't want to see it.
It's pretty minor.
If that these days is making headlines and they've got to come out.
Of course, it's making headlines though. It's a video of them wrestling. Of course, people it's been a very dull off season for scandals as well.
Do you want to see another video of them wrestling? Go down to training.
Yeah,
maybe they're just doing extros.
Yeah,
maybe that's how I'd frame it. That's how I'd frame it. No, I'm just getting extras.
Yeah, but no one's going to accept that, are they?
Well, you know what? You shouldn't accept the fucking false apology.
Yeah,
it's just bollocks, and they know it's bollocks. And even poor Kevy has to front the media. I'm like I feel genuinely sorry for these people because they should hook him up to a lie detector test and be like, "Are you sorry?" And they're like, "Yeah." All that's basically going to come of this is now the Broncos players aren't going to be able to go anywhere, or if they do, it's going to be this is where rugby league's going to go, and I fear for the game. It's going to be all roped off. And you're not going to they're knocking around in places that normal people go. They're trying to keep that normality and that working class connection. But what happens next time the Broncos players go for a drink? Isn't it nice for the rugby league fan to be able to approach their heroes in the street and get a photograph with them, maybe have a beer with them, maybe buy them a beer? That's going. It's gonna go.
Really interesting you bring that up, actually, because I work with a lot of guys who work with AFL players, and AFL's already a bit like that, where it's all roped off. Because he was a Melbourne guy, and he was saying how strange it was on Magic Round when remember we were at that bar, and there's all these footy players just drinking there, hanging out with fans doing that. He's like, you'd never see that in AFL, or you'd never see that in the cricket world. No. So you're right.
It's something it's something we're going to lose, and it's something that we'll say, "Oh, do you remember back in the day we used to?" Or fans will be like, I used to see such a body down at this place. It's like, you won't see it. And why? Because they have a push. This is young men who are having a beer. And you know what? Think about the restraint, even not to throw a punch. They didn't throw. It boggles my mind that Pat Carrigan and Adam Reynolds have to front up and put on this phony apology.
Do you want to know how your man Ben Dobbin described it?
Go on.
Dark day in Broncos history.
What? Really?
He did. Yeah. He did.
You reckon this is going if they? What year did the Broncos come into the competition?
Late 90s, wasn't it?
Late 90s.
Yeah.
So let's fast
90s,
forward.
something like that. 80s.
Yeah. So in the 1980. let's fast forward to 2080, and they'll do a 100-year history of the Broncos. Where's this?
It's going to be down there, I reckon, pretty...
Do you reckon there'll be a chapter on it?
Yeah, I reckon there'll be a chapter.
Like, they'll have Wayne Bennett, like all these competitions that they won. They'll have they'll have the final against the Cowboys, that you know, the championship that never was. They'll have another one where, you know, they lose the final. Like, that'll be part of their history.
They'll have the Seabolt years as sort of a tough period they went through. The wrestle.
Do you remember that fight with Reynolds and Carrigan? Bloody hell.
And they'll have Dobbo interviewed in the book as well, won't they?
Like, dark days then.
Yeah.
How will the club ever come back from that?
And then they'll have the next chapter will be like the dark days are over, and it'll be 2024, them winning the premiership.
Yeah. And then it'll be some fan going, oh, back in the day, I used to see some of the players down the pub and have a beer with them. Now I don't.
You might find them caxing sometimes.
Yeah. Poor Alfie Langer's going to be lapping it up. He's going to be the only fucker allowed out. Like, seriously, like, you know what? Some of the line of questioning from those journalists, I was like, you guys are just fishing.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting like, they use words. Is it fair to say you feel like this? I'm like, Kevy's like, no, it's like disappointed. Like, are you, like, honestly, if that's what we've come to, where footballers are filmed, not non-consensually, like having a bit of a wrestle and a push and shove, like, people go, oh, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Why is it not a good look? Two friends having a bit of a wrestle isn't a good look. What you, like, my two daughters have wrestles all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's different though, isn't it? It's different. Yeah, it's two footy players. It's two the captains of the club, and they're wrestling drunk. You know, like, it's not like it's not ideal. I get your thing that it shouldn't be as big as stories are made out to be, but I also think there's not that many. There's been a very quiet rugby league off season. This is the first thing where it's like, oh, a little bit of an off-field scandal, so everyone's jumped at it.
But it's not a scandal.
No, but it's a video. So news channel's going to run it because it's a video. It's a bit of content that they can put up. It fills a spot, and then the journos run with it.
Well, maybe then there's something wrong with society. But like I say, like, be careful. Be careful, because we're going to lose in my opinion, one of our greatest attributes as a sport, and it's that connection. We're a blue-collar sport where people graft and work hard, and people love the fact that the stars of the game are approachable. And even with, like, things like social media and some of the abuse that these players get, and I can understand it now, why, you know, the Broncos players would be, well, it's not worth me going down to the local. Like, I only drink now at the Leagues Club behind closed doors. We all get, you know, we get security with us. No one's allowed in, no one's allowed out. No one's getting a photograph because it's too dangerous. We saw it in the build-up to the grand final last year, where one of those kids yelled out some...
Yeah, it was Reece Walsh,
and he fired back. Well, yeah, how do you right, if the Broncos now go into damage control and they're trying to, how do you do it? Well, we never let this happen again. Well, players are going to drink alcohol, you assume so. Like, you know, we're not at that stage yet where players aren't drinking, but you've got to assume they're still going to want to let their hair down and have fun. It's still part of our game, but they're just not going to do it anywhere near the general public.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you now, people will look back and go, it's a shame that we don't get to. Why did that happen? Because events like this get blown out of proportion, and players just go, and clubs just ban it. They say you're not allowed to go down to the local pub anymore together.
Well, fingers crossed it doesn't get to that, but let's talk about the Broncos season ahead. What do you think they need to do to be successful again, to contend again?
Look, they'll be there or thereabouts, and they're the absolute top quality football team, even though they've lost so many players. It'd be interesting to see how Cobbo goes in the centres. Like, I'm really interested to see how he fits in there. That was a surprise to hear Kevy say that. I thought he might have stayed on the wing, and then they've solved one problem, but then not really created another. Corey Oates slot straight in. Adam Reynolds is fitness. Again, that they look a different team with that experience, but maybe this year with more football in Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam, Billy Walters, they won't be as reliant on him to get them around the park. They've lost some experience there, but they've got some great young forwards that will come in and do a fantastic job. And I expect that. Look, you can look at the grand final loss two ways. It's yes, they blew it, but you'd be framing it as like, lads, we were shocking that first 40 minutes, and we were 8-6 down at half time, and we were shocking to let it go. Like, if we play 75% of the game at the standard that we can play, we beat this championship team in Penrith. That's all we just need to do. Like, have an attitude of like, let's not beat ourselves. We are good. We just need to nail it. Like, there were so many errors to start that game, yet they still clung on. They paid a price at the back end. But that's how they've got to frame this season.
Where are they going to finish then? Top two, you think?
Top two, yeah.
Top two. All right, well, let's go to the reigning premiers. 3 premierships in a row. Looking to win their 4th premiership in a row would just be incredible in the modern era. A couple more players leave, as always, with Penrith. They have to lose a couple of cattle every year. And this year they're losing Stephen Crichton, Spencer Linu, and then a couple other sort of role players in Jamin Salmon and Zach Hosking. Paul Alamotti and Dane Laurie are joining the side. And another one who I think we should mention there as well is Taylor May returns from an ACL injury. Didn't play last year. He's back for them. He'll move into the centres. But again, Jimmy, they can't hang on to all their stars. But have they got the cattle to cover that?
Yes, they do. May's a massive inclusion. Like, Crichton will be missed. Obviously, Lenu off the bench will be massively missed. But May is a huge inclusion. And I want to say this. I thought the Broncos would win it, but I think Penrith will go again.
Wow.
And, sorry, I think the Penrith Panthers will go again if these new rules are adjudicated correctly. So if you look at how Penrith play, they attack so much through their defence. So one of the ways to counteract that is if you're being attacked for your defence, last play or early kick, you put your blockers in play to stop Penrith putting pressure on the kicks. That's now not allowed. So you're going to get free reign. Penrith are going to get attacked through their defence and then get free reign on the last play or tackle 4 to go and put pressure on the kicker. Also, teams would counteract that by putting plays downtown. So plan for the early kick or on last if you're a middle forward, or that right, say if they kick into their right, if you're facing that Penrith opposition, you know you're going to kick right, all that right-hand side kick chase would go early. They're not going to be allowed to do that now. So what this says is that Penrith are going to be even stronger, or it's going to be more advantageous in those areas that Penrith are already strong at. So it's going to benefit them. Then you look at, okay, we can't get out of our own end. Who does the ball land to? Dylan Edwards. Like, the person that you don't want it to land to because he makes so many meters. Then you've got Taruva or Brian Toto as well. Like, it's already a difficult enough task to contain that back three when you had a blocker, when you could go downtown. Like, teams struggle to contain them. Their job's going to be easier. Their job's easier. Your job's now harder. I think these new interpretations or how these rules are going to be now adjudicated, or things that referees and touch judges will be looking for, is going to play into the hands of the Penrith Panthers. Also, off the back of their victory, I've been thinking about this. Like, Penrith Panthers usually would dominate teams. The thing that surprised me about their comeback and the Nathan Cleary comeback is they've never had to do that before. Like, that was a new way for them to win. So they've proven now that even though like they'd look to dominate teams and blow them out of the park after the first 40 minutes. Sometimes you play Penrith, you beat them before you've even got on the park. sometimes you're in the fight for 40 minutes, they blow you away 60, and then it's over. Now, even if you're in the fight, they know they've got it in them to come back, which we've not seen it because we've never had to really see it before.
I think it's massive that you think the rule changes are going to benefit them. Like Penrith Panthers, they don't need any more advantages, so that's incredible, and that's scary for the rest of the comp.
It is, and that's how Penrith play, through attack and through the defence. And I genuinely think this is going to assist them in their style. If there's a style of football that this suits, I think it's how Penrith play.
So you've got them as the premiers then?
I think they will, yeah.
Wow. There you go.
I've changed my mind. I thought, reflection after last year, I thought Broncos will come. Yep. Maybe Roosters. But I think, they've got to stay injury-free as well. Their depth will be tested.
Yeah.
But the style suits these new interpretations.
Well, there you go.
But it's a big call whether they do and how
it's adjudicated,
how pedantic they are.
Yeah.
These blockers are an interesting one. I don't know,
because it's funny because in that NRL briefing, a lot of the clips were Penrith clips. So I wonder if the NRL has had that as not as a guide, but has maybe had the way Penrith play and the adjusting of the rules to try and help the rest of the competition. Potentially.
Maybe. But you think about it, the downtown, that's what you do against Penrith to stop their back three.
Yeah.
You put your blockers in play to stop them coming after your kickers. So
there you go. So you're happy to do one prediction for the preseason preview. Panthers is the premiers.
I think they're going back to back to back. Obviously, there's a lot of water to run under the bridge, and there'll be some very heavy competition from a highly motivated Broncos.
Yep.
Souths will be in the mix. Obviously, the Roosters as well. They'll be there or thereabouts. But as it stands today, I think Penrith will win.
Very good. Well, that's us done then.
All right. Great to chat, Charlie.
Good to see you, mate.
We can get a late lunch.
Yeah, late lunch. Absolutely.
All right. Cheers, guys.